Hey, I thought I'd give an update on the multi-unit freehold block that I purchased back at the start of 2022. So it's been a while since I did an update, um, and so yeah, I thought it was definitely overdue. So just a reminder for those that haven't seen some of the earlier videos, I bought this property completed on it back in January 2022, and it is a 6-unit multi-unit freehold block. So what does that mean? It's basically six flats that are all in the same building and are all on the same freehold title. So I bought it back last January from a landlord who'd owned it for a number of years and then decided to sell it to release the equity, I guess to invest elsewhere. And the plan was back then, it was kind of a little bit tired inside, but it was fully tenanted. The plan was over the next number of years, as tenants vacated the different units, I would then refurbish them, basically to increase the rent, and just to make it even more profitable. So yeah, it's been a bit of been quite a few ups and downs in terms of this property. So I think on the plus side, starting with the advantages, it does cash flow well. Um, it's high yielding. You've got 6 different streams of income at any one time. If one tenant does leave their unit and it does have a void for a couple of weeks, which doesn't happen very often, then the income from the other properties then is going to cover the costs of the mortgages and the repairs. So that's a really good plus point. Also, the plus point was some of the tax savings. So because it was 6 units, basically it was treated as if it was a commercial property for the purposes of stamp duty land tax. So there was some significant savings there in terms of stamp duty. So yeah, that's a real plus of buying 6 or more units. But there has been some disadvantages, and so what's happened is two of the units have become vacant over the period, and have needed a refurbishment. So I've carried out that refurbishment, and I used a builder who at the time seemed like he knew what he was doing. But it's subsequently transpired, after tenants have moved in and I've parted ways with this builder, that he did not do as good a job as I thought. So superficially it looked good, but actually when you kind of dug into the detail, there was a few issues. So in particular, he used an electrical contractor who doesn't seem to have been up to scratch, and that's meant we've had to do some remedial work as tenants have noticed issues with some of the electrics in the properties. So to make it safe, we've had to get another electrician in at cost, to rectify some of those errors. And we've also had some issues with the bathroom. So we used the wrong kind of tiles basically. He used the incorrect type of tiling, which has resulted in some leaks in the bathrooms, which has had to be rectified as well. So that's been another cost, which is a bit disappointing. So it's cost me more than I'd hoped, in quite a short amount of time. So that's a bit of a setback. So the kind of key lesson there is that I think when I chose that builder, I was really concerned on cost, and not on cost, and time, on making sure I got the properties refurbished as quickly as I could, so I could get money from the next tenant. Whereas actually I should have taken a bit longer to make sure I was getting a quality operator rather than someone who could start immediately, because that's a big lesson learned from me. So I won't be making that one again. And actually in the future, the letting agent that I use in the area, he actually does project management, and he has got a very good, from my working with him, he seems to have a very good eye for detail. So I'm thinking about using him potentially in the future to help me project manage some of the refurbishments, and he employs the tradesmen directly. Or I'll get quotes from some other builders, but it'll take a bit longer when I do so, just to make sure I get the right person in there. So another issue we've had then is that there's been some arrears actually. So despite it being a good cash flowing asset, they are 1-bedroom flats, and with that, in a kind of city centre area, but it comes with that because they're low cost. They're not furnished, but it basically comes with a certain tenant class that quite likely to be quite transient, so they're more likely to move on as required, and so they're not going to necessarily stay as long. And also, probably they're going to have realistically lower salaries potentially, or most likely. Basically, the reason, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but there's a reason why people choose to live in this property, and it's low value flats. I don't think I need to say any more there. It's basically there's been a couple of issues with arrears. So we had one tenant in one of the refurbished flats who initially seemed like a really good fit. He had a really good job in the local area, and he initially paid on time. And then we noticed periods where he stopped paying, and so the letting agent got into action, sort of sending him reminders to pay. It wasn't until after, it's about 3 months into it now, and the letting agent actually went round to the property to check up on him. And it turned out he'd moved out, but rather than kind of hand the keys back into the letting agent, he basically just put them under the door. So that meant that he'd disappeared. And was behind in his rent. It was actually about 4 months by the time he went out. So what's happened with him then? He's long gone now. Subsequently, the property has been relet, and somebody else is in there. However, he has over £1,000 worth of arrears. I believe the letting agent speaking today, they've now taken his deposit from the registered provider, so that'll go back to me, so that'll kind of cover some of the costs, but there's still a bit of an arrear there, which is annoying, because I would have liked to have that money myself. So what's going to happen is I've instructed the letting agent to take him to the small claims court. He seemed like the sort of person, when I spoke to him, I did actually meet him once, he seemed like the sort of person who might need to get a mortgage or something in the future. And so actually, if we can get a county court judgment against him, that means that when he goes to get a mortgage or loan in the future, he'll be blocked because of that. And so he'll have to therefore go back and repay that debt. So I think it's unlikely I'll get that money back, but there is a possibility that it might happen. Like I say, we can get a county court judgment. So yeah, that's something that we're looking into now. And the next one, we've had a new tenant move into the basement flats, which is great. But there's an issue with their payments. They claim that they've been paying the rent, but they haven't. It's not being paid to the agent, and so we're trying to track down what's going on there. We're also giving them notice that they need to leave the property because they're behind with the rent. So hopefully that'll get resolved. But again, that's come up to nearly like £1,000 worth of arrears. So add on like the additional kind of refurbishment costs, talking about about £3,000 of money, like almost redoing work that had already been done, supposedly by the initial Cowboy builder. Add in a couple of grand of arrears from non-paying tenants. You've got like £5 there of costs, which I hadn't thought about. However, let's try and be positive. I think in the long run, it's still going to be a good investment. There's just a bit of, it is an old building, as you can see in the picture. So yeah, it's going to have some work that needs to be done. And I think what the problem is that the outgoing landlord, he'll have known he's going to be selling it for some time, and they basically put off conducting some of the maintenance. That's one of the things I'm sort of starting to notice. So actually, something to be aware of. You're buying like an older tenanted property, and especially something as big as this, I expect that you're going to have to invest some money into it, because the outgoing landlords may have already kind of decided they're leaving and have put things off, hoping it's the next kind of sucker like me will have to pay for it. Yeah, and other than that, there's a couple of other issues as well. There's a currently investigating. There's like a void, which I can't really show you, but it's behind the wall. There's a void in the wall. There's like a fungus that's been growing, which is really weird. I'll show you a picture. It looks a bit something out of a horror film. So that's being currently treated and dealt with. That's going to be an extra cost. And then there were some roof repairs needed as well, and that was expensive. That was £5,000 to basically replace a significant amount of the roofing. And you can see, kind of make out from this picture here, that the roof is quite big. It's a 6 flat block. So yeah, that's it. So there's still there's 6 units. One had been refurbished recently by the landlord, and that's become vacant once and relet really quickly, although the tenant subsequently hasn't been paying. I've refurbished 2 of them since owning it, and then there's still 3 where I kind of thought I would have done by now, but the tenants haven't left. So I'm not in the habit of moving on tenants unnecessarily. I'll keep them in there as long as as long as they want to stay there. But yeah, at some point, if they do leave, I will then get in and refurbish those properties. But it basically means there's 3 kind of outstanding refurbishments. That if a tenant leaves tomorrow, I know I'm going to have to fork out some money to get that refurbished. So that's something I need to think about and just have some cash to one side for. So another thing to talk about as well is rent reviews. So I buy tenanted properties. This is a bigger one, I guess, but I also buy single unit tenanted properties. And one of the things you do notice when you buy such properties is, well, firstly, the advantage is you get income from day one. However, the disadvantage is that you typically find these properties at underlet, so they might be being held by the same landlord for a number of years, who potentially didn't see it as a business, which I do see it as, and they may not have increased the rent in line with the market. So one of the first things I did with this property is I put the rents up, and I'll continue to do that on an annual basis. So around about the next about autumn time, I will send out notices or by the letting agent to increase the rents on some of these properties, which are going to increase the cash flow, and also help pay for some of these unexpected repairs that have been cropping up. So yeah, that's the update really. I don't regret the purchase, but yeah, I think with something like this, like an old building, you just have to really be quite thick-skinned and just expect the unexpected. Things are going to go wrong, and you're going to have to put some money into it to get it to the standard it needs to be. But yeah, I think it was definitely worth it. I'm really happy with the initial tax savings, and it's a real good cash flow asset. It's just at the minute happened to be a bit of a money pit because of some of the things that have gone wrong, but I hope that's not going to continue into the long term, and hopefully over the long term it's going to make me some good money. Anyway, hope you found it useful, and I'll do another video in the near future. Thanks, bye.